Hi guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and this is another Austen and August video. So last week I had a video where I talked all about the things that I love about Jane Austen fanfiction, but it's not all rainbows and roses. So today we're going to talk about some of the things that I don't love about Jane Austen fanfiction. Fortunately, there aren't too many things that just ruin a JAFF book for me. I mean, any book can be well written or poorly written, so we're going to set that kind of aside. But there are certain tendencies I see in some Jane Austen authors that I don't approve of. Number one, biggest thing, is character authenticity. So I talked about this in The Loves. I don't mind when a character does things that would be totally out of character if they were still in the original canon text. Changing what they do, how they respond to something, or what they say, that doesn't bother me, so long as it seems like it's authentic to who they would be if their life had taken the path that you're setting up. But when you get these characters that don't at all seem to share any resemblance to the characters that you know and love from the original text, like I've read a lot of very insecure Lizzies, and that, no matter the path that you take for your story, that just doesn't ring true to me. And you have to really work at it to make that make sense. Most of the reason that we're reading Jane Austen fanfiction is because we're in love with the character so much. It's not the plot points. Obviously, Austen is a master at what she does, so plot, characters, tone, all of it is why we love the originals. But when you're reading fanfiction, obviously those plot points are going to change. It's the characters that we want more of. It's them getting to know each other and us getting to know them in a new way. And if you're giving me someone totally different, then you might as well have just written your own book that doesn't use the names Lizzie and Darcy or whichever story that it is you're retelling. So that is number one no-go. If you mess up the characters, you mess up who they are at their core, we're gonna have words. On the kind of opposite end of that spectrum, from changing things too much, is changing things too little, an over-reliance on the text so that the story that you're trying to tell doesn't get a chance to shine, or you're resting so heavily on what Austen wrote that you're forcing things in ways that they don't make sense just so that you can hit that familiar plot point. That drives me nuts. It really does. Also, lifting huge portions of the original text and putting them unchanged into your book. I understand, I talked about this in the other video, I understand wanting to not lose a certain scene because it's pivotal to the story and the changes you're making, but I think you still need to work to make it blend and be seamless and not feel like just reading it again for the 75th time with like little sprinkles of your words in it. Why would I want that? You know? I'm trying to get a new story on these characters that I love. If I wanted to reread the original, I would just reread the original. So, not going bold, I guess, and trying to shoehorn in original text, original wording, certain lines, even though it doesn't fit. It's a murder your darlings issue for me, and it also sometimes maybe reads as a laziness issue for me, so just a big pet peeve. This can sometimes tie into my next sort of 2 points. One, an author may do that. They may over-rely on Austen's text when either they have just a bare familiarity with Austen's stories or the Regency time period. You can kind of tell when someone really is out of their depth and they're trying to force a story anyway, either because they think they can write, or they have this idea that they just want to go for and they didn't do their due diligence in making sure that they have that foundation, or that other reason, it's a cash grab. I don't know how much an Austen author is really making. I'm sure there are a lot of them who make nothing, and I'm sure there are a lot who are doing pretty well for themselves. It's a business, you know? It's a whole network. There are devoted readers who seek all this stuff out. There are people who only read Austen retellings, and there's plenty out there. So it is a way to get your foot in the door. Retellings across the board. You'll see a lot of authors start off with retellings. It's a way to get your name out there and to have a kind of built-in audience. And sometimes it comes across as so cynical and just shitty. I've talked about this before. This isn't going to be news to you guys, but Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Seth Grahame-Smith has got to be one of my least favorite books in the world, and it absolutely comes across as a cash grab. Over-reliant on Austen's text, because you can tell he didn't really want to write anything. He just wanted to kind of take the text that existed and then, like, flip it on its head to add in the zombies, and just kind of mocks it. There's no understanding of who the characters are, what the story is. It's hack work, you know? It's just pointless. Which is crazy to me, because there are sequels who are written by a different author, Steve Hawkinsmith, and he likes Jane, and you can tell, and it's night and day between the first Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Pride and Prejudice and whatever it is. Totally, totally different. The respect for the text is there, the understanding of the text, of the world that these characters live in is there, the homework has been done, and the foundation to build a good story is there. When you don't have an understanding of the story, of who the characters are, of how this world exists, then you end up doing stupid stuff that just is so glaring that anyone who is familiar with the story is gonna notice. And the people who are reading your story are ones who are familiar with the original. That's why they're reading it. So that is just such an irritation for me. There was another one, I don't remember what it's called. It was free on Kindle Unlimited and had a beautiful cover, so I ended up reading it. I think it was like set at Christmas. I want to say the author's name was Olivia, and I think she liked Pride and Prejudice. I'm not saying that, but she clearly had no understanding of the Regency world. Now, I'm okay with some authorial liberties, and I'm okay with you even changing the Regency world. You can make it a new thing. I mean, Maria Grace has, you know, Pride and Prejudice with dragons in it. Obviously, that's not the Regency world that we know to be true, but she has the knowledge of what the Regency world is and how to tweak it and make things make sense, and it's done in a really cool way. I'm fine with things being changed, you know? I'm fine with, even if you want to sound more modern, I don't care if you sound like Jane Austen or if you try to sound really formal and historical. That's a stylistic choice. But when you don't have just the basic knowledge, then you'll have your characters do something that is so not okay that the story would end right there, you know? Mr. Darcy's not walking around with his shirt open and no cravat on. It's not happening. That would be like going out half naked nowadays. You know, that's going out to the grocery store in your bra and underwear. Unacceptable. So there are so many like little things that if you're not familiar with the world aren't gonna seem like a big deal to you. People who are familiar with the world are gonna be like, what just happened? That's just, it just shows a lack of preparation, I think, and to me that can kind of come across as a lack of respect for the story. And when you're trying to attract readers who love the story, maybe not the way to go. It's gotta pass the vibe check, you know? And the last thing, and this is probably just totally a stylistic choice, and there are people who are gonna love it, but historical set retellings. So not when you're completely changing where and when it's set, but when it's still set in Regency England and you're trying to tell a traditional retelling, but it reads as Gothic, that drives me nuts. Unless you're doing a Northanger Abbey retelling, which was kind of a send-up of Gothic literature, they're two totally different styles and two totally different ways of approaching a story, and Gothic can become cheesy so quickly. That's why Northanger Abbey isn't a Gothic novel, but it's a play on a Gothic novel. It kind of makes fun of Gothic novels. You can still enjoy them, that's not the issue, and they can be really fun. But there's a very overdramatic and overblown style where just everything happens, you know? Everything that can go wrong does go wrong, everything's ominous. That doesn't work. It's very jarring when you're supposedly telling a very traditional take on the tale. It just, it reads weird to me. And when, I hate to say this, but when fanfiction can already kind of slant towards the cheesiness, and when readers are already to kind of nitpick you because they're reading your muck-up of their favorite book, you don't want to run the risk of absurdity, I guess. It kind of, a little bit, I think, touches on the whole not understanding the time period, because it, even though it's, I mean, Gothic novels were popular at that time period, so it's not a complete lack of understanding. It's kind of like the soap opera version of the Regency time period, and so it just doesn't have the same feel, you know, and it doesn't have the same gravitas is the stupidest word, and I hate that I'm using it here, but it doesn't have the same gravitas, you know? It just doesn't work in the same way. Though again, it is sometimes just a stylistic choice, and that's fine, and some people do it really well. And sometimes it is intended to be a Gothic retelling of the stories, and then it's fine. There are a lot of times when, to me anyway, it feels like the author doesn't realize the line between Regency and Gothic, which is really its own thing, and they kind of slide back and forth between the two, or they just come off more as like a telenovela when it doesn't feel like that's what they're going for. So that just kind of, it's a little pet peeve of mine. Sometimes it works, and sometimes that's what you want, and sometimes that's what the author's going for. So it really just depends, but I think there's a tendency for people, again, not to have the foundation and not to realize that the soap opera that they're adding to the story just doesn't gel, you know? But that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously there are some that are really poor spoken. Obviously there are some that, even if they're poorly written, are still fun, and all of that's going to be subjective anyway. But the things that kind of are the immediate turnoffs for me are these few things that I've mentioned, and fortunately it is just a few things that are all kind of interconnected and really just rest on the writer's understanding and love of the story, you know? It all just kind of starts there. If you're a real, like, hardcore Janeite, you're probably gonna nail it. Even if your story's not for me, you're gonna have that foundation. So it's really just about that, I think, in the end, and me being a Janeite snob. But not as much as I used to be, because obviously I'm reading Jane Austen fanfiction, and there are a lot of Janeite snobs out there who are disgusted by the idea that it even exists. But that's all for this video. I will leave the video for my loves list linked below, as well as my Jane Austen playlist in case you want some more Austen goodness. And of course, it is Austen in August right now, so there is all kinds of Austen-y amazingness happening over at my blog, giveaways, interviews, guest posts and reviews, just some cool stuff. That's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and read more Austen.